But evil men and seducers shall wax worse, deceiving and being deceived. Ray Hagins, you're not telling the truth. When you made that statement such as you have said that all the sacred writings, okay, from the Egyptians were copied from the Egyptians and put into what we know today as the Bible. Even though the information written in the Book of the Dead, or rather what they call the Book of the Coming by Day, does not match the intelligence in the scriptures. These are lies, man. Let's go to that statement, okay, by Ray Hagins for confirmation of truth, for facts.
And you can see that clearly in my tape, African Evidence That Demands an African Verdict. I actually got it right there, the pyramid text of ancient Egypt, where all of the sacred writings were copied and stolen from and put in what we now call the Bible. Right out of the pyramid of Teti I in Saqqara.
Now let's prove those statements wrong, that Ray Hagins stated that all the intelligence in the scriptures were copied from what he called the sacred writings, okay, of the Egyptians. Let's examine the hunting, fishing, fowling, and some of the foods that the Egyptians used to eat. And let's see if it matches Leviticus, the 11th chapter, which is dealing with, okay, the dietary law. Now, this is a Xerox copy from a book called Ancient Egyptian by the author David P. Silverman on page 62, and it states this pertaining to some of the foods that the Egyptians used to eat. It says the main prey for the hunters in the desert was the Dorcas gazelle, which is a clean creature of the Almighty's creation. Let's jump down to the antelope, jackals. You ain't supposed to eat no jackal dog. That's pure insanity. And the desert cats were also hunted. So the Egyptians, they used to eat jackal dogs and desert cats. They were hunted for food. You see? Just like some of the people in Chinese, they eat cats. Now let's turn to Leviticus chapter 11, okay, in verse 41, and let's see if it matched the lifestyle of the Egyptians, as many are proclaiming falsely that this information is a Xerox copycat of the so-called sacred writings, okay, of the Egyptians. So everything should be equal, same and exact. Let me see if this supports what we just read. Leviticus chapter 11, 41. And every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten. Whatsoever goeth upon the belly like a snake, and whatsoever goeth upon all fours like a jackal, like a dog, walks on his 4 feet. You see? Somebody's lying. So here we just read that the Egyptians used to eat jackal dogs and eat cats. But here we just read in the book of Leviticus, which is right and exact, which explains that we're not supposed to eat no dog or no cat. Any man or woman that got common sense know you ain't supposed to eat no dog or no cat. So who's telling the truth and who's telling the big fat lie? Let us continue. The Egyptians, they hunted on foot and used bows and arrows, spears, and lasso and dogs. They used to lasso a dog in to kill a dog, to eat the dog meat. They caught smaller animals in nets and traps. Animals were slaughtered and skinned. Okay, let us keep going on. It speaks about after development of agriculture, the huntings of large animals as subsistence activity declined. Fishing, fowling, mussels were collected, okay, from the river. They also ate hippopotamus. Now, how in your right mind you going to eat a hippopotamus? That's pure insanity. And crocodiles was occasionally hunted for what? To eat. Hunted for food. Question, now how you going to eat crocodile meat and consider a woman or a man that do such thing to be superior? Eating crocodile meat or hippopotamus meat or eating dog meat or eating cat meat proves that you're very uncivilized. Okay, crocodile meat is not for human consumption. Cats was not created for human consumption. Eating a dog or a jackal or hyena was not created for human consumption. The Egyptian also used to eat, okay, a wild ass, which is known today as a donkey. You're not supposed to eat donkey meat. You're not supposed to eat dog meat. Just like you're not supposed to eat hog meat or frog meat. This is totally uncivilized. This is total insanity. This is nothing but a fairy tale lie. Okay, when you're claiming that all the intelligence in the scriptures were copied out of the so-called sacred texts of the Egyptians, even though it do not match. Okay, the Egyptians were uncivilized. You're lying. You're deceiving the people, and this is all being done to lead the people astray from the Creator, because that's what this is all about. It's all about man and woman making peace and reconciling with the one that's responsible for bringing them into existence. It's not about the Book of the Dead. But then the author Wallace Budge, okay, who wrote quite several books pertaining to the lifestyle of the Egyptians, he come back, okay, in his book called The Dwellers of the Nile on page 93, and he says, the man who was born a slave lived and died a slave and left no memorial of himself behind. If he was given a wife, or if he took one and had children, they were property of his master, meaning they were property of the Egyptians. The Egyptians kept people as slaves. The Egyptians were humane people. But then he comes back and says the Egyptians were humane people, even though they was eating hippopotamus, even though they were eating dogs. I mean, any man or woman who thinks it's okay to eat dog meat, donkey meat, alligator meat is not humane and civilized. Wallace Budge on page 37 also makes mentions, who is a so-called well-respected Egyptian historian. He stated how the Egyptian children of the rich and the poor alike, they went around naked. They went around walking around backside naked during the earliest years of their existence, even though it says in 1 Timothy 2:9, it says that the woman is supposed to wear modest apparel. So the Egyptian woman, and their little kids used to walk around with everything hanging out and swinging out. You see, just like some of the so-called Africans, in the bushes in so-called Africa are still maintaining these uncivilized practices. Now, how many of you brothers and sisters ready to conform to the way, truly the way the Egyptians used to live their lifestyle in the earlier stage of their earliest empire? Yeah, this is part of the practice. So to be a true Egyptian, you got to walk down the street with everything swinging out and everything twangling out, which the scriptures speak against. You men are lying. So you brothers and sisters, you're living a lie. You're not even true to your own philosophy, your false philosophy. Because we want to be an Egyptian in word, but not in deed. That's why it says Jeremiah the 10th chapter explain exactly what we just read, in the valley of the Nile, pertaining to, some of the practices of the Egyptians. It says, hear ye the word which the Creator spake unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Creator, learn not the ways of the heathens. The heathens used to walk around naked. The woman with her breasts and everything hanging out, and her private body parts. And this is what you call civilized? This is what Ray Hagins stated, that all the intelligence in the scriptures was copied out of the sacred writings, of the Egyptians. And then everybody in the crowd, at his lecture, they just go wow and start to clap and start to cheer and say, Ashe, Ashe. So how sacred is it for a woman to be walking down the street with her breasts hanging out and her private parts swinging out? On page 149, it also speaks about the Egyptian gods, which they call gods, the early inhabitants of the Nile Valley. They should worship stones. Only a fool will worship a stone. And trees. You got to be an idiot to worship a tree. And mountains. This is how foolish the Egyptians were. They should worship stones, and worship trees, and they should worship the mountains, and they should worship animals, they should worship birds, they should worship reptiles, worship fishes, and other objects. But Leviticus, the 19th chapter, explains very clearly, how we are not supposed to do these things. And what Leviticus 11th chapter is stating is correct. This is total ignorance. It says, Leviticus 19:1. The Creator spake unto Moses, saying, jump to the 4th verse, turn ye not unto idols, turn ye not unto bowing down and worshiping the stone, Turn ye not unto idols of worshiping a tree. Turn ye not unto an idol to worship a statue made in the image of a dog or a crocodile, or an image of an idol that's half man and half beast. Turn ye not unto idols, nor make to yourself molding gods, which they call gods. I am the creator, your power. So that's foolishness. The intelligence in the scriptures does not match what the Egyptians is talking about. Ray Hagins, you're lying. You're just not dealing with truth. Maxwell Jordan, he said this same lie as well. Let's go to the clipping for confirmation.
The first book of the Bible is called Genesis. The reason it's called Genesis because in Egypt they had a book that they called the Book of the Dead, or the Book of the Coming Forth by Day. It was also alternately known as the Book of Gen, G-E-N, Isis. Gen Isis. Not Genesis, Gen Isis. Genesis is nothing more than the Hebrew interpretation of the original Egyptian Genesis. Genesis, the Book of Beginnings.
So do you have it? Okay, where so-called Maxwell Jordan, he speaks about the book of the coming by day, which is also known as the book of the dead, and he speaks about the term Genesis, okay, which is supposed to be Genesis Isis, which is supposed to be a duplicated interpretation of the book of the dead. And if you would sit down humbly and examine the intelligence in the records known today as Genesis and examine and compare it with the book of the dead, it does not match in no shape, form, or fashion. These guys are deceiving and manipulating people's mind, just like the scripture said they would do. They're telling nothing but lies. And the Egyptian men used to wear what we know today as mini skirts. So how many of you brothers ready to get with your mini skirt here today to show your real Egyptian loyalty to your so-called heritage, like it says in Romans chapter 16, verse 18. It says, for they that are such serve not, okay, the King of Kings, but serve their own belly. By good words and fair speech, their charismatic speech, okay, with their terminology and their words, which people are fascinated. Like the word Bible is not in the book. Okay, it comes from the word biblios. I mean, come on, that's pretty much ABC. Okay, anytime you translate anything out of its original text, of course, it's not going to be defined by its original, okay, way it was in the official way, in the beginning. It says, through their fair speech, okay, they deceive the hearts of the simple. And you brothers, y'all deceived. Y'all are very deceived because you found a few mistakes in the scriptures. Now you think it's not valid because a man told you so. And you haven't done any shape, form, or fashion, any personal humble investigation. All you did was say ashe, ashe, and you repeated what another man said, just like a tape recorder, DVD, robot. Also the Egyptians, okay, their concept of lifestyle, natural beds were forbidden. What kind of foolishness is this to tell a man that he can't wear what grows on his face naturally? This is their concept of belief. Natural beds were forbidden. This is total insanity. Even a lion grows his mange. Okay, a man grows a beard because the Creator put the beard on the man's face to distinguish masculinity from femininity. Okay, natural beards were forbidden. Okay, these are the people with the intelligence, okay, and the Bible came from. Yeah, right. It says they used to fasten on an artificial one underneath the chin. So instead of growing a beard naturally, they used to create a fake beard, okay, and they used to put it on their face. This sounds like some type of trick-or-treat mask, some type of foolishness. It says this artificial beard is really the mere suggestion of a beard, strapped behind the ears. Okay, the old empire put it on sometime when they appeared in their great wigs. Not only did the woman wear wigs, but the Egyptian men, they used to wear big fat wigs on their head to as well. This is where the so-called wig industry got their concept from. It came from ancient Egypt, which Egypt got their concept from Babylon, and it goes on and on and on to the Sumer kingdom, leading you all the way back to the demon world. You see, this is foolishness. But Leviticus chapter 19, okay, verse 27 states this: Ye shall not round the corners of your heads, neither shalt thou mar the corners of thy beard. So Leviticus chapter 19:27, it supports a man having a beard, which is a natural thing. Just like a woman, she grows breasts to nourish her kid. You see, this is total foolishness. Now let's go into more insanity pertaining to how the Egyptians really lived their lifestyle. This is page 232. And it states this is pertaining to a situation, for instance, a remedy against when the hair is turning white. In other words, when your hair begin to turn gray, which is a natural process. It said the head was to be anointed with the blood of a black calf. So remember, you got to go get some blood from a calf, and you got to put it on your head to prove that you're a real Egyptian. Okay, that had been boiled with oil. But first you got to boil this calf blood with oil. Okay, and then you got to put it on your head. And that's supposed to, I guess, turn your hair from turning gray back to being black. This is pure insanity, man. Stupidity. This is some type of barbaric way of thinking. Let me give you two more examples before we close out this chapter pertaining to the so-called Book of the Dead, or rather the Book of the Coming by the Day. Okay. In the Egyptian Empire, when your hair was falling out, when it fell out, it could be renewed by their concept by 6 kind of fats. Work up together into a pomade. The fat of a lion, okay, of a hippopotamus, of a crocodile, of a cat, and of a snake, of an ibex. So you got to kill a lion, you got to kill a hippopotamus, and also to extract the fat out of them. Okay, it was also considered, okay, a really strengthening to the hair, to anoint it with the tooth of a donkey crushed in honey. What kind of madness is that? So by crushing the tooth of a donkey, mix it with honey, that's supposed to strengthen your hair. This is pure insanity, man. Let me give you one more example. This is foolishness. And this is what the people is looking up to. How is a donkey tooth going to strengthen your hair? How is the fat, okay, extracted from a lion or a hippopotamus, going to make a man whose hairline has receded to baldness grow? Even a kid got more sense to know that this is pure insanity. This is some type of superstitious folklore, simple stupidity. Also, like I made mention before in another sermon, that the Egyptians used to eat blood, okay, like a caveman or a cave woman. But Leviticus chapter 19, okay, let's bring up this point once again. Chapter 19, verse 26 states, Ye shall not eat anything with the blood. So it's impossible for this information to be a duplicated Xerox copycat of what you call the sacred writings of the Egyptian. Because the Egyptian lifestyle is total opposite to what Leviticus chapter 19, verse 26 prescribes. And if you're a real Egyptian, that means you got to eat blood like a cannibal, like a savage, like a caveman, like a cave woman. You see? So these are lies. This is nothing but a tool to lead people astray from the truth. But let's go back to the book called The Daughters of Isis by the author Joyce Tile Desley on page 106, which states this. It says a cow was slaughtered, and the resulting meat must have been flavorsome, but rather stringy and tough. Once a cow had been killed in the Egyptian Empire, no part of the animals were ever wasted. The brains, they ate the brains. That means you got to eat brains. They ate the entrails, which represent the intestines. They ate the ears, the tongues, and the feet were all consumed with relish. And even the blood was saved to make a tasty black pudding. That's what you call a savage, uncivilized way of living. But let's read Leviticus chapter 19:26 once again. Ye shall not eat anything with the blood. You see? This is foolishness, man. The Egyptians used to eat blood. So how many of you brothers is ready to eat some cow blood tonight? Some cow brains tonight? Some cow intestines tonight? For those who say, oh, that's not true, you know how you know this is true? Because we're still doing the same thing in this 21st century. Like my favorite scriptures, Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 9 states, ain't nothing new under the sun. Everything that's being done here today in this 21st century has already been done in the ancient world. Whether it's eating blood, whether it's eating cow brains, whether it's having sex with your daughter, whether it's raping, murdering, or killing. These are other testaments, okay, pertaining to the scrolls that was not publicized to the public, pertaining to this situation of the matter here today. Just like some of the Caribbean brothers and sisters are eating pig blood here today in this 21st century. And this is page, let me see what page, 226. It's called the Other Bible. These are other records that was not publicized. And it touches on this same token. It says the sons of Jacob, this is talking about you black people, they went astray, just like we're going astray here today, in them, and were punished accordingly to their errors, as it still remains here today, which a lot of us don't want to acknowledge that we in fault. And their sons in Egypt, which many said that never existed, the captivity of the Hebrews under the Egyptians, you are liars. They walk in the stubbornness of their heart, as it still remains here today. This is all in harmony with Isaiah the 30th chapter and the 9th verse, pertaining to our stubbornness of our mind. Taking counsel against the commandments, because that's what the Most High gave us. He didn't give us Egyptology. He didn't give us religion. He didn't give us Buddhism. Okay? He didn't give us Presbyterian. He didn't give us Judaism. He gave us commandments, which is dealing with laws, how to govern our lives. Against the commandments of the Creator, the same way this earth is governed by commandments and rules. And doing each what was right in their own eyes, as it still remains here today. Some of us are swinging on a pole. Some of us is in the porn industry. Some of us are selling our soul to Lucifer. Some of us is teaching lies in these so-called fake churches. Doing each what is right in his own sight. Telling lies. Egyptian lies, African lies, so-called Christian lies, just deceiving the people, manipulating the people, playing three-card Molly with the information and not coming full circle with 360 degrees of the truth, telling the people what you want to tell them. And they ate blood, and he cut off their males in the desert. This is talking about you. You're Jacob. And you're still eating blood in this 21st century, calling it black pudding. That's how we know this is true. There's a tribe in Africa, I think the name is the Masi tribe, who are a descendant of the Egyptians. And like I said before, ain't nothing new under the sun. Everything that's being done here today in this 21st century, whether it's telling lies or deceiving people or manipulating people, deceiving the people that there's no higher authority than man, of immortality status, it's already been done over 3,000, over 4,000, over 5,000 years ago. But pertaining to this tribe, called the Masi tribe, their concept of belief, okay, pertaining to their lifestyle, is to eat blood. Just like the Egyptians used to eat blood. Just like some of us are still eating blood here today in this 21st century. And you wonder why we catching so much hell. Let's go to that clipping for confirmation.
And in the morning, they promised that they would come back and they would actually celebrate one of their very interesting traditions, where the Maasai who revere the cow will do something very strange to it. They actually will tie up its neck to make the jugular vein constrict. They take the bow and arrow and they pierce the jugular vein, creating a little slit in the neck, and they gather the blood in a gourd. And they must have drained 2 liters out of it, but this cow, which also wasn't very big, seemed to take it in stride. And what was interesting to me is they actually covered its eyes while they were poking it with the bow and arrow. But there's a larger, more extended metaphor in that cow gives life to a community. Now, they would beat the blood that was in the gourd with a stick, stir it up, and what would happen is the stick, stir it up, rate the blood plasma liquid from the erythrocytes, the red blood cells, and all the up in is it would separate the blood plasma liquid from the erythrocytes, the red blood cells, and all the other elements of blood. And then they would take that bloody pulpy mass out and they would eat it almost like jello, just pop it right down. Then they gave us the gourd to drink, and I was preparing myself to taste a salty, thick mass. And it wasn't a strong taste, a little bit like iron, but it went down smoothly, and the Messiah told us that, that will make you feel better. You won't have to drink much water after a while. So it was just a fascinating day for us. We learned and experienced.
So there you have it, confirming the statement of Jeremiah, the 10th chapter, around the 1st and 2nd verse, to be true when it says, follow not the ways of the heathens. And these are definitely heathenistic, barbarics, backwards, savage, caveman and cavewoman practices. You see? Like it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, with you brothers and sisters, you are living a lie, in whom the gods of this world have blinded the mind of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of the King of Kings, whose image is of the Most High, should shine unto them. The 3rd verse, if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. And you are definitely lost. You are not no Egyptian. And this is not about Christianity. This is nothing but another weapon of mass deception. Ain't no different than the falsehood explanation of Christianity. Egyptology is false. Christianity is false. Buddhism is false. Religion is false. Judaism is false. Islam is false. 5% is false. The educational system is false. The so-called African historians are false. These are all liars. And when we get down to the nitty-gritty, when this is finally over, we shall see who is telling the truth and who is telling the big fat lie. And at the end of the battle, the truth shall stand as the heavyweight champion. And I guarantee you, I put my faith on it. It's not going to be Egyptology or Christianity. Okay? Because the scriptures is not dealing with Christianity or religion. You're not explaining things correctly. You're lying to the people. In these other records recording, which they call the Damascus documents, it states how they prophesied falsehood to turn away Israel from following their Creator. And that's what this is all about. It's all about turning the people away from the supreme authority of our existence and replacing it with Egyptology and replacing it with falsehood and demonology. Because this is about us returning to the Creator. We don't care what the heathen and the foolish man saying, talking about there is no greater power than man. Men and women like that going to find out the hard way, just like those ancient empires. They ran with those same game over 4,000, 5,000 years ago. And that's why their empire was smashed down to no existence of rulership.